started with our next session, which is actually a presentation that I will do on sustainability accounting. And let me try to share my slides here. So I hope you can see all of them. And what I'm going to talk about is, of course, something about finance and accounting, but something that you might not have heard or seen so far. Also, this is actually a session that I'm preparing with a colleague, Yevgen. Because of some personal reasons, we had to change it, and I'm presenting today only. But just remember that it's not only me who's talking about that, but it's also Yevgen. Okay, let's have a look at the agenda that I prepared. So I will quickly give you an introduction. What is sustainability accounting? And then I will try to make a link to what Dynamics has to do with all of that. Yeah. Then I have a short example where I show you a bit, of the Power Platform, of Dynamics, and how you can integrate this. Yeah. But the most important part is actually the examples that I want to share with you, what we as a community, as IT experts can do. Yeah. And then I will summarize things and open for questions. So let's get started. What's the background of all of that? And well, many times I was talking to people about, well, accounting and costing. And what I hear all of the time, or many times, let's say, is people tell me, hey Ludwig, Dynamics is a great tool, and it should help us to see our full costs. So we need to know what is the full costing of our products, services, and so on. Yeah. Well, that's something great, yeah. And the tool that we use for that is, I just tried to illustrate it to you here. It's kind of costing sheet. Yeah. So let me try to explain it, because it's in German language. I did not find it in English. But what you see here, basically, in this second column, these are the costing types that you have. So you have costs for salaries, for rental, for insurance costs. So these are just listed here. And then in the different columns, you can see different cost centers, business unit, departments, whatever you have. Yeah. And what accountants are doing is basically, we are just trying to allocate costs between cost centers, from business unit to cost centers, and up and down and back and forth. So we are doing cost allocations so that at the end of the day, we arrive what I call a surcharge. Yeah? So this gives you an impression or an indication what indirect or overhead costs you have to put on top of, let's say, your materials. Yeah. So if you're producing something, you have some raw materials in, then you know, in my example, 16.3% need to be added on top of that so that you arrive at your full costs. And all of this ends in what Dynamics calls the costing sheet. Yeah. And this is just a screenshot from one of the Microsoft Contoso environments. So if you want to see that, this is a typical setup where you can see here an internal logistic costs, and then you have an overhead or surcharge that you put on top of other costs that you have. Yeah? So that's basically what accountants and controllers want to have. And then if you have this implemented, you can get your financial statements right. So the balance sheet will give you a clear and concise pictures of your raw materials and finished goods. So this data will be correct. At the time you sell products to your customers, the cost of goods sold will be correct. And then, of course, also your net income, yeah, the taxes, everything that you pay to the government, this will be correct. And at the end of the day, you know whether you got richer or poorer. And what I used here on the next slide is basically an illustration. So if we are following this concept, everybody's happy, yeah. So on the left-hand side, yeah, maybe our customers are happy, our investors are happy, our government is happy because we pay our taxes on time, yeah. So everything looks good. But there is something that we might have overlooked, and the next slide should try to illustrate you this. So I was talking about full costing or absorption costing. But what about side effects that we do not account for? So the question that I want to answer in the following is, what is the true cost? What is that we miss in all of our calculations and that we have to account for? Yeah. So if we start here on the left-hand side, then the question is, are we importing goods? Are we paying our subcontractors and their employees fair wages? So are we trading in a fair way? Then you see here, yeah, other pictures about destruction of the environment. What about those costs? Because in the costing sheet, in the balance sheet, there's nothing stated about that. But I assume that most of you follow what's going on with the Paris Agreement, with environmental change, with these fair trade considerations. And the question is, how can we get these additional costs that we currently do not account for? How can we get this incorporated into our finance and accounting framework? And if you search for that, you will quickly come up with the term sustainability. Yeah? Everything must be sustainable somehow. But if you try to answer the question, what is actually sustainability and how does it relate to accounting, then things get quite difficult. So let me try to explain you what I did. So the first step that I did is I just searched for sustainability accounting. And if you're doing that, if you enter this term into a web browser, you will come up with millions of hits. There are so many organizations that have something to say or an impact on that that you can get overwhelmed. Yeah, some of you might have heard the Sustainability Development Goals from the United Nations, which is a very important aspect of this. Some of you might know the SASB, so the Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, or GRI, which is also an accounting standard setter. So there are really many aspects and things where you can get started, but you can also get lost. Yeah, that's kind of the disadvantage. So in order not to get lost, I tried to ask myself the question, hey, what is actually not sustainability accounting? Yeah, what is it that this is not covered? So the first point here is greenwashing. For those of you who are not familiar with this term, greenwashing basically means that you do not really care about these issues, but you're basically using it more for marketing purposes. Yeah? Okay, so the next point is the sustainability accounting is not a new cost accounting concept. So it's not like, we're doing something new. We have a new balanced scorecard or a new accounting idea. No, it's not. It is a concept that helps us to calculate the true costs that are currently not incorporated in our financial statements. It's also not a religion. It's not a socialist concept, but there might be shifts. If you implement this, there might be shifts of wealth between different nations, between different societies, between different supply chains. So that's an important aspect. And the most important thing here on this slide is this is not a trade-off concept. So what you cannot say is we develop now, so we grow now, we want to make business now and try to fix the things in the future. If you follow the media, if you follow the news, you might have heard about things like carbon capture and all of these things, where people try to get the environment better because something in the past happened that they want to fix now. This is something that we cannot really make use of in this context of sustainability accounting. Because it's not a trade-off where you can try to fix something later because later might be too late. Okay, so what is sustainability accounting? And here I try to put you a nice graphic that shows you the idea. So it is a concept that includes different areas. So what I showed you in the beginning is basically just the economic perspective. So we focus on costs, on revenues, on things that we can allocate, that we can measure in money terms, at least at the moment. But there's more. There's also the social aspect. This was the picture where I showed you, hey, what are the people that produce our clothes? What are they earning? Can they live from that? What are their labor rights? Do we treat them fair and equally compared to what we are doing in Western economies? And of course, there's also this environmental impact or influence that is very important. So it's these three aspects, they all make sustainability accounting. And for some of you who might be from the accounting area, some of you might know things like balanced scorecard. It has kind of similar aspects, and extends the pure economic perspective of finance and accounting. But that's actually something that is not going far enough. It is not focusing on social aspects. It's not focusing on the environmental effects of what we are doing in corporations. So then the question is, of course, what has this stuff to do with Dynamics 365? So why should we care about this sustainability stuff? Well, here I put you a quote from the Prince of Wales, actually, who is very much involved in this sustainability accounting society. And he says that we have to make sure that we are not battling with old tools, or that we are not battling to meet 21st century challenges. So basically environmental changes, global warming, fair trade, child labor. So all of these things, this must be fighted off. We must take care this into account. But what we cannot use is these old tools. So we have to think beyond. We have to think a bit different, and broaden our perspective. Because if we are not doing that, some of you might know these kind of pictures. Then we are on a path from left to right, and this basically indicates that we will, or our children basically, will see a world that is difficult to live in. Okay, then the question is, okay, how can we get all of these things in Dynamics, and what can we do as a community, probably to help making things a bit better? And that's what I want to show you in the following. And for that purpose, I created something very simple. Yeah, so it's not just the idea in the following is not to show you a very sophisticated application, but to show you how this might be put into Dynamics. And what I try to demonstrate you in the following is what is the environmental footprint that is resulting from business trips, because many people here that are in the call are traveling or were traveling before COVID on a daily basis for business purposes. And then the question is, okay, what's the environmental footprint of our business consultants? And to measure that, I created a small business travel power app that helps me showing this data in Dynamics and posting it. So there are many ways how this can be set up, but what I want to show you in the following is a kind of small app that is linked to the travel and expense reporting in Dynamics. So you open it directly from Dynamics, and then we have what we call a kind of shadow pricing. And shadow pricing, this is an important concept when it comes to the sustainability accounting or environmental accounting, because that's the way how we monetize things and how we make it transparent to managers. So let me jump then to my demo that I prepared. And of course, my machine was going to sleep. So let me try to get started here. So that's one of the standard Contoso environments. And what I did is I was just going into here travel expense management. I have an expense report, and what many of you are probably doing is after you completed a business trip, you go here into the software, you enter your costs for hotels, for travel, for flights, and any other kind of expense that you have. Okay, but then the question is, okay, I know, and most of you also know that if you're flying, there's an environmental effect on that. But if you look at the fields that we have available, there is nothing that would help you measuring or accounting for that. So you cannot just enter here a kind of distance and then have some calculations, because these features are just not available. So what I did was I created a small Power App that I just opened and included here. So what this app is doing, it is basically just allowing me to enter an expense report number. It allows me to enter the department and so on. And then in the middle part, I have a section that allows me to include transportation things. So everything that is related to transportation, and then I have something for accommodation. And of course, there are things that can be improved and make 100 times better. But let's have a look at what this thing is doing and how it can help us probably. So let's say last Monday we were, let's say, flying from Frankfurt to London. I don't know the exact distance. Let's say, or make it easy, 500 kilometers that we traveled. And then I say add a line. And what happens here is this Power App is actually linked to a SharePoint site. And on SharePoint, I just grab this distance traveled and make a conversion into a CO2 equivalent. So how many kilograms of carbon did I emit by flying? And that's the result. That's all calculated on SharePoint, so nothing really sophisticated. But what I did is I calculated here also some emission costs. And emission cost is nothing else than a price applied to these kilograms. Some of you might say, hey, where do I get the price from? because well, not each and every country has this price. But for example, in my home country, the government already issued an official CO2 price. Whether this is correct or not is another question. Yeah, but there is something. Also, the European Union has this kind of concept where they require you to do this kind of calculation. At the moment, it's just for larger companies, but you can expect that in the near future, more and more people will have to report on that. Yeah? So here you can just enter what you traveled. So basically, let's enter here another line where we travel with an ICE train, so with a fast train. And if we compare that, okay, the distance is different, but you can see that a public transportation has a lower CO2 emission. And then let us also add here at the bottom, some days for accommodation. So let's say we were sleeping 2 nights in a 3-star hotel, and then I add the calculation and I get something similar. Of course, the calculation for this is not easy, but there are a lot of research institutes that can give you an idea how you can convert this into emission costs. Because that's ultimately what I want to have now. Yeah? So what will happen if I press the complete button here is this app will close, of course, and it will start a flow. Yeah? So the business app that I have will trigger a flow, and this flow will then do some calculations for me. And at the end of the day, and this is the most important part, it will create a journal, and it will create here journal lines for me. And that's the tool or the mean that I need to incorporate this into finance and accounting. So let me quickly check my machine if the stuff is already there. So we should see 4 journals because I tested this already before. Now if I open just the journal and the journal lines, then you will see what is done here. So that's basically today's date. So the flow just created this line. It summarized lines and it says, okay, from the accommodation, you have an environmental footprint that is equivalent to 2.07 euros in my case. And to account for that, I used a statistical account. So that's an account that you will not find in a typical balance sheet and income statement, but something that you can report below the line. That's what we say in accounting. So you can just create a separate report or report it in just below your financial statements. The offset account is also a statistical account, and this is what I called a kind of liability. Of course, it's not a liability against a bank or an investor, but a liability that I have against society, because I'm traveling, I'm destroying part of the environment, and this gives me, this kind of liability that I can account for. And something similar happens here with the travel costs, where I say, okay, I was traveling. These are my travel costs that I incorporate and post, and then I can run my financial statements for that. So that's basically all what my app is doing, and what I wanted to show you in the system. Let me try go back to my PowerPoint, because if you know how to use the Power Platform, there are really thousands of things to improve here. So the calculations that I did, they were made on SharePoint and in the Power Platform, which is not perfect. Because if you're doing this calculation the way I showed you, then it's difficult to adjust. So just imagine the CO2 price is changed. Yeah. Then you have to go into SharePoint, into your app, and do some changes. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of experts here in the meeting who can do that probably better. But it's not the message that I want to transfer. The message is that we need to widen our... Oh, can you mute yourself? Yeah, okay. Okay, so what I wanted to express here or transfer is that it is not a specific technique that helps us making things better and moving forward, but that everybody of us can do something. Okay, so and rather than showing you more and more things in the system, I thought, okay, we are a lot of IT experts, we are a lot of finance accounting people, technical experts here. And the question that I ask myself is, how can I bridge this gap so that we leave a bit the finance and accounting part, which might be boring for some of you, I know, because debit and credit is not everybody's world. But I try to accumulate some examples that give us an idea of what we can do. So the first thing that I want to highlight here is what I basically introduced. So the travel, yeah. So once COVID is hopefully over one day and we go back to normal life, I would like to ask you to think about your travel habits. Is it that you have to travel all the time to a customer and to have an on-site meeting? Here's an example. Yeah, if we would have this conference just let's say in New York, yeah, if we would meet in New York, then the environmental footprint just from a flight that I would have from Frankfurt to New York would be 746 kilograms, and that's what you can calculate with any kind of app that you can find online. Well, you might say, okay, 746 kilo is not much. Well, but the thing is to extract this kind of emissions from the atmosphere, you need something. And what we have for free basically are trees. Now that the issue is an 120-year-old tree. So if a tree is planted and grows for 120 years, in these 120 years, it can take 3,500 kilograms out of the atmosphere. So if you calculate just the cost of my flight, then I need to plant a tree that grows for 25.6 years. Or alternatively, I can plant 25.6 trees. Well, I do not know if you have ever done that, but I was doing that when I was a student to earn some money. I was planting trees for one day, and after 10 trees, I can tell you, you will feel your arms and your legs, and you might not be able to move anymore. So that's a difficult exercise, but this should give you an indication of the extent. Yeah? Then the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is what we saw many times, or what we see many times nowadays is we build an app. So I did that. So I am also not the best example for that, but we built a lot of apps, put a bit virtual reality, artificial intelligence on top, and we just demo something. And then once we are finished, we forget about the machines, we forget about our apps, we do not clean our systems and environments, and things are just sitting there, and they consume energy. They're still there, they will be stored. Microsoft will not just delete it, but this means the storage and all of this will cost us some energy. So what I would like to ask you for is better software design. Everybody can do that, and everybody can try that. What does that mean if we apply it to the app that I show you here? Well, a better software design means reduced IT traffic. a reduced IT traffic means a reduced cloud to IT center data usage. And this means, of course, a reduced energy consumption, which is, of course, good for the environment. So next time I have to improve the app that I just showed you, rather than coming up with something semi-finished. And that's what I would like to ask you for is just put a lot of thought into what we are doing, whether this is all the time needed or whether there's a better way to do it. Maybe a more friendly way for environment, for people, and for society. And the third example that I have for you is this one here. Is our IT devices. I'm currently doing a presentation on a computer, which is, I think, 2 years old. And many of you change regularly computers or telephones. So here, what I want to share with you is basically, the sequence of the iPhone releases over the time. And what happens with these devices is around 80% on a global scale will be burned at the end of the day. So they will be smashed and they will be burned. And I just learned it the other day that this guy that you see in the picture below is actually the lowest level, or this is the guy who is in the lowest level of the hierarchy, because most of this recycling of our IT devices happens in Africa. There's not much that is really recycled and reused. And at the end of the day, this stuff is burned. And the effect is, of course, these people who are possibly the poorest ones in this whole chain, they will suffer from health effects. The water, the soil that they live from, this will be spoiled. So they cannot grow something there. They cannot live from what they grow there. And what will ultimately happen is these areas and regions, they will become not inhabitable anymore, and people will be forced to move to other countries, to other regions. So next time, when you think about getting new IT devices, think twice whether this is really needed, and maybe you can use it another half year longer. I think this would already help. Okay, so third point here is the thoughtful purchase or replacement of IT devices. So here's a quick summary of what I showed you. So there are many things that everybody can do. So we do not have to build a sustainable accounting app where we post something in Dynamics, because this just is reporting something. What this app and these accounting things are doing is just documenting what happened already. But what I would like to ask you doing is doing something to prevent this. And there are many things that we can do. I mentioned travel habits. I mentioned better sustainable software. Maybe we can come to a state where we do not release previews, but come to a state where we have completed software. Also, the last point. This is very, very important. The IT devices that we use, and I can tell you I have a lot, and I think the same applies for many of you. And there are a million other things that everybody in this community can do. Okay, short summary, and this will be really short, and it will also hopefully not offend you, but it will give you an understanding of what I'm talking about, because here's an error that says, here's what you if you pass away. So I'm in my 40s. So according to statistical measures, I have another probably 40 years to go. So, and if I pass away one day, that's exactly what I can take with me. Well, I am not sure if you can see that, but I put here a note. There's nothing you can bring with you. The only thing that is left is basically the environment, the things that we leave for our kids, and for their future life. So instead of doing some funny things, let us sometimes think twice how we, even as IT guys, can make better in the future to arrive at a more sustainable world economy, so that the sustainability accounting might actually come up with zero costs. Okay, so that's the message that I wanted to transfer. I hope you could follow me, and if you have some questions, just open it, raise your question, or just put it in the chat. Okay, thank you then.
Thank you, Ludwig. So that was a very, very, very interesting session, which I've never heard before from a finance perspective. So it really, really has got me thinking, because it's something that we've all been overlooking, and we're paying the price for. I think every single organization makes very, very, I'd say that they just look at numbers, immediate numbers on their balance sheets. And as a result, we obviously pay the consequences. We all pay the consequences. Just trying to look at the questions in the chat. I can't seem to read them for some reason. I don't know if you can read those questions, Ludwig.
Okay, of course, I have two computers, which I should not have, but I can find some. So, sustainability reduces profitability for major companies. For example, industries without planned obsolescence. There's no benefits. It's a dilemma. Well, I mean, that's kind of message that I want to transfer here. The question is, what is profitability? Yeah, what is the profit that you calculate? Well, if you're an accountant, profit is easy. You have your sales revenue, you have your costs. That gives you your profit. The question then is, what is the cost? What do you have to include in this cost? And maybe what we learned in university is not complete, and we have to think differently. So I think it is not an issue of reduced profitability. It's a question of how we measure costs and revenues. And there are a couple of things that I did not mention, but as an example, if you take the European Union enforces this kind of accounting for large companies. So if you're a stock listed company with more than 500 employees, you have to do this kind of accounting. The same applies if you're a stock listed company in South Africa. China is doing that. And many other countries implement these rules and regulations that extend the pure financial perspective, where you just do some kind of number crunching to come up with a profit and loss. So that the world is changing, and I think we will see this in the next couple of years more and more. Okay, then there is another comment. There will be a time when the tax will be raised for companies who don't care of the environment. Yeah, this is what I mentioned. There are many countries and regions who implement a CO2 tax or some kind of CO2 trading schemes. So this is just evolving. I think we're just at the very, very beginning of all of that. But I hope that will increase and be used in the future. Okay, so that's what I saw from the questions. So this brings me basically to the end. If you have some other questions, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Just ping me. And yeah, thank you very much then. So.
So what we can do, Ludwig, I'm happy to share some of the prizes that are being given away during this event. So I'll post that